What are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do?
What I'm gonna do?
I thought there was a bucket over here. Did you see a bucket over here?
No, maybe that was when the fire went in.
No, I don't see one over there. I thought it was on this side of the house, but I don't see it. There's one back here. Oh, I see a bucket. I see a bucket, Mabel. Do you see it? This white one? Right here.
There's someone like
Oh, just one?
two.
That's two, but we only need one, right? Alright, we just need one. I think we'll come right here by the worms. Maybe we can drill the holes right here. Does that sound okay? Well, let's actually, why don't we take it over by the shed, because that's where the drill is. Can you carry it? Strong kid. Strong kid. Thank you for helping. Like a purr? 5/8 inch drill. Bro, I think it's right here in this spot. There's something, people, I don't know what it is, but there's something that feels just so wrong about drilling holes in the bucket. We're doing it, a big shovel.
I can't carry a big shovel.
Okay, let's go see if we can find it.
You can carry it.
Well, because sometimes that's how you gotta get the shovels. You gotta put it away when you're done with it, right? Come on. Let's go dig a hole. You gonna help? Alright.
Mommies.
We need more worm bins, right, Mabel?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, hand
What?
heavy.
What's heavy?
I said a handful full of things.
Ah. Do you know what this is, Mabel, right here? What's this thing?
A worm bin.
A worm bin. What are we going to do with the worm bin?
Put worms in.
We need to gather some worms, don't we? Okay. Can we use that tool to get the worms?
Yes. It's
No, it looks like you and Mommy were working in here a little bit.
yeah. We will.
That's good. All right, can I see?
That
We're going to take the worms out of this one.
That faces.
Is it?
That faces, but you could use it.
Oh.
Hey, kids.
I'm going to take these worm castings with worms. And this is going to be what's going to help start our new worm bin. And then we're going to take some of this because that's where the worms are hiding right now. Look at them all.
Well, a
Are
while.
those wormies?
Well, we can pick them up.
You think we could pick them up?
When we done doing this.
I think that'll be a good start, don't you?
Yeah.
A good wormy start. We're here in the garden and in the orchard, and we're gonna dig a hole to put this new worm house in. So we use worms a lot. We've used them for quite a while.
Daddy,
Yeah.
wait up.
Okay, I'm coming. Are you coming?
Yes.
All right.
Mommy.
They're great for eating up kitchen scraps or garden scraps or whatever you have kind of laying around. One thing you don't want to feed them is bones of any kind or animal products, because that could attract. I'm waiting.
I'm coming, Matt.
Okay. That could attract.
But you were too fast. I am slow.
We have a worm factory that is a really great system because it rotates the worms to the top. The worms rise as they eat, and they eat up all your food scraps. It's a great way for composting because you don't have to worry about the timing of your compost and getting a big pile built and then coming back and ensuring that you're adding everything at the right time and rotating it, spinning it. With the worm bin, Mabel, we're gonna come over here and turn off the electric fence, okay?
Okay.
All right. With the worm bin,
Do it.
well, I don't know if you can pull the cords apart, but we can try.
I can do it.
All right. It's right here. Can you take that apart?
Mhm.
Here, you hold.
Go.
Strong girl. With the worm bin, you can just add scraps like this partially eaten delicata as you get them, and the worms will eat them up when they're hungry. What's also cool is they do a lot of fun things, like worms can double their population in 90 days. You have to use a specific kind of worms for the most part. Red wigglers are the most popular. There's a bunch of other ones, but red wigglers are the ones I'm the most familiar with. Basically, the worms eat the microbes and the other biology that grows on the food as it decomposes and rots. What I'm going to show you here is the easiest way I found to do worms. It can be called a worm tower or a few other different things. But all you have to do is basically, for my way, is bury a bucket and drill with a bunch of holes drilled in it, and then put all your food scraps in it with some worms. And that's all there is to it. It's just that simple. Right, Mabel?
Yes.
Yes. So once you have it buried, you can cover it with a piece of burlap, or you could put a lid on it and then just add food scraps. It fertilizes the ground around it, and if you wait long enough, you'll end up with some beautiful castings that you can use for fertilizer in other places. So this is what I have here, just a regular 5-gallon bucket. It's a food grade bucket, but it doesn't really have to be food grade, that I've drilled a whole bunch of holes in. We used a 5/8 inch drill bit to just kind of spatter them all over the place. Previously, I've also just cut the bottom off, but in this case, I chose to just drill holes in the bottom. Crude, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Now I'm going to pick a good spot in my orchard over here where I'm not worried about mowing, and I'm going to bury the bucket up to pretty much the lid. And then is there anything else to it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, we'll talk about that later. You got your shovel?
Yeah, I don't have a shovel.
What is that?
It's right.
So here's the 5-gallon bucket. I've got the holes drilled in. I want to put it right here next to this apple tree. So I'm going to go ahead and dig it out and deep enough for that bucket to fit inside the hole. Alright, so I got my bucket buried. It's down in here. Pretty easy. And you can see I've got it mostly surrounded. I'm going to take some of this backfill. And, hey, Mabel, why don't you come over with that rake and scrape in to surround the bucket with that dirt, okay?
Daddy, why is there some holes in the bucket?
The holes in the bucket are for the worms. We're going to put the worms in the bucket with food scraps, put a piece of cloth over the top to keep out anything that we don't want in there. And the food scraps, the worms will feed on. And then the worms can go in and out through the holes, and the worm juice and the worm castings will go in and out through the holes, and it'll fertilize the area around us. And all we got to do is add food, right?
I can't do it.
You're having trouble?
Yeah.
Start it now. All right, so what we want to do is take this and see the hole around the side. Oops, I really want to put it in the bucket. Okay, you got a little bit over here to work with. You do it now. And we're just bring it in. Why don't you get some stuff from over there?
Can you put my
No, do you have a pocket?
no?
No. Yeah. Both guys, both guys. Good. That lavender smells really good. Oh, buddy, let's not hit it, all right? Because you might hit my hand. So we've got our bucket set up, and we've got some holes drilled in the side, which is going to let the worms go in and out
Yeah.
through the holes into the soil and then back into the food, right? Mabel, can you hand me that blue bucket that has the worms and the food scraps in it?
Yes.
Are those the worms that are in our other one?
Yeah, we got these worms from our other one. These are, what kind of worms are these?
I don't know.
You don't know what they're called? They're called
What are
red wigglers.
Because they wiggle a lot in the red.
I guess so, yeah, probably.
They do wiggle a lot.
We got a lot of kitchen scraps in here, bananas.
Yeah.
What else
Lots
is
of
in here?
stuff.
And there's the worms. You guys want to see?
Yeah.
See those wormies?
Yum, I love worms.
Yum, I love them.
Yum!
I like to eat worms.
I like to eat them.
The bucket is in place. We've added some soil around the outside to make sure that it is tight and snug and secure in its location. Added some dirt inside to make sure that the worms have some grit to put in their gizzards, because worms have a gizzard just like birds do, or some birds. And put all of our worm stuff in there. So we've got the worm castings in here. We've got the worms in there. And what I think is really cool is that usually when you buy worms at a store, a great place to buy worms if you want to is Uncle, oh man, I can't remember the name of the website. I'll put in the link. Uncle John's, Uncle something or other, but they got red wigglers. Uncle something's red wigglers. You could search that and it'll come up on Google. But when they sell you worms, they just sell you the worms, right? All you get is these red wiggler guys right here that you see, and not much else. And the thing is that the red wigglers are great, and they grow quickly, and they would double their population in up to about 90 days. But what I have here, because I already have a worm bin, is I have red wigglers, and I have eggs, and I have cocoons that are already in this soil. And ooh, they're tickling.
Yeah, they tickle me too. They get tickling my hand.
So this is going to eat up a lot of the food that's in here and create castings for us. And also the worm juice. The worm juice will just go down through the holes and it'll go out into the rest of the soil, which is going to make the soil around here really great.
You can give me wormies.
Well, you can put that wormy back, guys. We don't want to hang on to it for too long. And I'm going to be gentle with the wormies, right?
Mhm.
You like worms?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You like them too?
Mhm.
Yeah. So from that one bucket, where we're going to continue to add food scraps and other trimmings from the garden and all sorts of stuff, it'll fertilize this apple tree right here. It'll fertilize that comfrey right there. It'll fertilize the lavender that we have right over there. And we'll be able to plant other things around it, like this bee balm that's growing right here. It's going to give us a lot of other fertility aids, and it's going to get rid of our scraps. What we can do eventually is, when this bucket gets filled up, we could dig out the inside and we will have a bucket full of castings. A lot of that will have migrated into the soil around it. A lot of it will stay inside the bucket, and we'll be able to use it as fertilizers in the rest of our orchard, all over with the rest of our trees and the rest of our plants, or even in the garden.
Another one.
This is the simplest, easiest way I know to do a worm composting. I can't find a piece of burlap to put on there. I know I've got a big roll of it somewhere, but I think it might be out in our shed right now. I just can't track it down. So another trick that you can do is, I've got the bucket right here. I'm just gonna take another bucket, Put it on top of it. That'll cover it up. Worms will be fine in there. That one's probably going to collect rainwater, but it's not supposed to rain for a little while, so it'll protect them from any predators or anybody who might try to get in there. Not a lot of things like to eat worms. Well, that's not true. A lot of things like to eat worms. Moles, shrews,
Birds.
birds. What else? What else likes to eat worms?
Coyotes.
Coyotes? You
Yes.
think? I don't know, maybe. How about rats?
Definitely.
Definitely rats. Maybe what about possums?
Mice.
Mice? Possums?
Yeah.
What about eagles?
Yeah.
Probably not.